Alright, so we have a vintage MRE to review today. This one is, I'm not sure how well you can read this because of the black printing on the brown bag, but it's menu number 2, corned beef hash with accessory packet B. And this is actually from Tabasco when their name was Tabasco from Mullen, South Carolina. Now this is one I'm very excited about, and I'll get into the reasons why in a second. I will start off with a warning that I'm going to be talking about this quite a bit. I know I can tend to get wordy, and because this one is so special, I am going to with this one too. I have no problem if you want to skip ahead to the actual opening and the review, but for the next couple minutes I'm going to be talking about this thing here. So first off, I want to say that this came from Fatboy Tactical off of MREinfo.com. I want to say a big thank you to Fatboy Tactical for sending this. So as far as dating this, and as far as why I'm excited about it, as we said, it is in the brown bag, which means it's from 1981 through 1995, before they introduced the tan bags. And we can date it even a little bit closer because it's corned beef hash, which was only produced between 1988 and 1994. So we know right away that this is going to be at least 24 years old. Of course, obviously this is the days before they put date codes on the bags, so there's nothing on the bag to indicate anything else. And you can see this gets in quite good shape. I'm really hoping this is going to be edible because part of the reason I'm so excited about it is that I've never had this menu before. It was introduced at the end of my time in the service, and when I was in, we never got brand new MREs. I always had MREs that were at least a year or two old. So even though this was actually out while I was in the service, I never had it. And it was many years later that I started doing MRE reviews, and of course by then this was long gone. So they tend to be pretty hard to find, and I've heard a lot of good things about the corned beef hash. So I'm hoping, it looks like this was stored nice, and I'm really hoping this is going to be edible, because not only do I want to check this out, I want to actually taste it too. And then just a quick history of menu number 2. I thought this was kind of interesting because this actually replaced, in 1988, this replaced menu number 2 ham and chicken loaf. And that doesn't sound very appetizing, but I have to admit, when I was in the service, I actually really enjoyed that. It may say something about my tastes, but I did like that. And I'm sure I would have enjoyed trying this out when I replaced it, but as I said, I never get the chance. So in 1988, this replaced the ham and chicken loaf. And then in 1995, this one was replaced by chili and macaroni, which it's sort of interesting to think of the first year of chili macaroni is 1995, and it's something that's still with us. It's become one of the classics, one of the standbys that's been in the MREs since 1995 right up through the present day. But for whatever reason, the corned beef hash was only around, basically around the time of the Desert Storm Gulf War era, and a little bit later. And I guess that's really all the background I need to give in this one. So why don't we go ahead and open it up so we can try to date it by the contents and also see what's in here. Now these brown bag MREs, they didn't have the peelable seal. What they have is they have just this little notch up at the top, and you're just supposed to tear this and just rip into it. Not really the most convenient way of getting into it, but since this is in nice shape and it's something I've never had before, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open this up with a knife on the back. And I'll check for any kind of interesting smells coming off of here. As I said, we're dealing with something at least 24 years old. It just smells like plastic, and actually it smells like fresh plastic, which is a good sign for the how this was stored. Sometimes it can actually almost smell like an inside of a barn, even though it's been sealed all this time. Ah, we get the Tabasco. All right. So, here comes the moment of truth. Here we have the corned beef hash. You can see here it's a pretty simple list of ingredients, but here's the ingredients if you want to check those out. And it was in the days before they started having to put the nutritional information, so there's really not a lot of information on here. Just say it was packed for Tabasco, the 8-ounce entree. And here's the date code 2058. So this was packaged on the 58th day of 1992. So we're looking at a 26-year-old MRE here. We also have accessory packet B. I don't know how well you can read this, but it has coffee instant, cream substitute, sugar, salt, chewing gum, matches, toilet tissue, hand cleaner, and candy. I remember when I was in service, I was always excited to get an accessory pack that had candy in it. It's kind of really hard to read that with the glare. But accessory packet B with a date code of 2091. And by this point, they had they replaced the little white spoons with the standard that we have now, brown MRE spoon. It's a nice improvement. No hot beverage bag and no flameless ration heater yet. I think this is actually just the year before they introduced the flameless ration heater, so we just missed that. Here we have a beverage-based powder, and this is in the generic paper type pouch rather than the retort pouch. And on the back we have that it's cherry, so that's a little bit of a rare one. It's funny it says 2016, so you almost think like, oh, this is only a couple years old, but it's the 16th day of 1992. We have cherry beverage base. And we have our standard MRE crackers. Nicely vacuum sealed. Look for a hiss on that one. And for the crackers we have grape jelly. There's something exciting, let's save that for last. And we also have cocoa beverage powder. Ah, look at this, here we go. This is great. A couple of different things that we had with this is, this one was produced at a time when there was no flameless ration heaters, and by the final year of production, there was flameless ration heaters. So that's another way to date it besides the date codes. Another thing that changed while this was in production was the fruit. At the end of the line, they put in thermostabilized fruit, but in the first few years, they were still using the freeze-dried fruit. So we actually have a freeze-dried fruit mix. This is pretty exciting because you don't see these very often. And then the last thing we have is an oatmeal cookie bar, which is in even more impressive packaging than the crackers. This vacuum sealed package where you can just see every little angle on this bar. The date code of 2050. And our little Tabasco sauce, which looks to be completely liquid. Even, it's hard to tell, but even the neck looks like it's still liquid, which is another great sign for the storage. Indicates that it was stored well. So then the last thing we have is the accessory pack. So we should check that out too. You can barely smell anything in that, which is an awesome sign. It smells fresh. It smells like something. It smells like a store. It smells like you're in a Walmart. I'm not sure exactly how to explain that, but it's kind of a pleasant smell, possibly coming from the gum. This is a pretty cool little time machine here. So for the coffee, we have Taster's Choice. I'm not sure how that's going to hold up in this commercial packaging, but it still sounds granular. That's good. It's a good sign. 100% freeze-dried coffee and Carnation Coffee Mate non-dairy creamer. It's interesting the commercial packaging. And of course, we have to have some sugar for that. And we also have standard. We have salt, and we have the gum, which looks to be fine. Obviously, it's going to be a matter of whether these are tooth breakers or not. We have the old school toilet paper, red tip matches, moist towelette, a wet nap. You can probably go ahead and check this one out too to see if it has that lemon smell to it. So this was packaged at the end of 1991. There's a date code of 1284. And then the candy is a couple of Tootsie Rolls. This will also be interesting. I had a long time frozen MRE from 1995 a couple years ago that had Tootsie Rolls that were absolutely fresh. It felt like they were just bought right out of the store. So it'll be interesting to see how these hold up after 26 years. All right, and here is what we're getting in this menu number 2 corned beef hash MRE from approximately 1992. I'm calling it 1992 because the latest date code I can find, I believe, is from the 91st day of 1992. So obviously it couldn't have been packed before the last component was packed. So it obviously did come out in 1992, but there are a couple things in here that are dated from 1991. The grape jelly has a date code of 1263, and the fruit mix, the freeze-dried fruit mix, has a date code of 1304. And so the last thing I think is pretty interesting about this is that according to MREinfo.com, the freeze-dried fruit was phased out after 1991, which means there should be thermostabilized fruit in this 1992 one. But I think what they did was they probably had a lot of stock of this stuff, and I'm sure they were still using it up until it was gone. And in fact, that 1995 frozen MRE I had, that actually still had freeze-dried fruit in it too. So this MRE definitely came out in a 1992 case, but on the early side, a few months into the year, and so it may still have some 1991 components in it. And of course, as I said, this is about a year before they added the flameless ration heater. So we're going to take the corned beef hash, and we're just going to heat it up in some hot water. Back in those days, you would either eat this cold, which obviously you can do. You could do then, and you could do that now. But you had a few options. If you wanted to heat it up, you could put it on an engine block, a hot engine block. You could put it in front of the exhaust of an engine. You could just leave it out in the sun. And if you're in an armored vehicle, you could put it in front of the heating exhaust port. A lot of different options, but the most convenient one, of course, is just throwing it in some hot water. So that's what we're going to do. And we'll check out the rest of the components while that's heating up. So I'm definitely looking forward to getting into this stuff. And we have the crackers. This is the date code of 2091. And let's see if we can get a hiss out of this. Let's see what we got here. See, it's vacuum sealed really nicely. I don't know if you could hear that. There's a pretty good little hiss and some release of the pouch. These are in good shape. These are the... I like to get some of those really old ones that had the salt on them. They smell perfect. Just smells like it's a boring cracker smell, which is exactly what you want to get out of this. You don't want to have that that bleachy kind of smell, which somehow, knock on wood, I've actually never had bad crackers, and these are no exception. These are just fine. Oops. And the grape jelly from late 1991. You have to need the cheese spread and the peanut butter. You don't necessarily have to need the grape jelly, but when it's been sitting around for 26 plus years, it's not a bad idea. And that just looks like grape jelly. It's not runny or anything. This is it's definitely a good sign here. That looks really good. Hopefully it tastes as good as it looks. There aren't really a lot of things to eat in here. We have our Tootsie Rolls and we have our oatmeal cookie bar. And it smells just fine, as expected. 26-year-old oatmeal cookie bar. Definitely smells like oatmeal. It has a slight hint of maybe a little bit of coconut. Just a little bit there. Alright, and the last food item we have is the fruit mix, which is the code of 1304. This is packed at the end of 1991. And with these, you can either eat these dry or you can reconstitute them in water. And there's another vacuum seal package, a little bit of his there. I always thought it was more fun to just eat them dry. Less messy, less work. But for the sake of the review, wow, it's weird, that smell. It just kind of takes you back to being in the desert, opening up one of these, and wow, it really is like a time machine. But yeah, what was I saying? So yeah, since it is a review, what we'll do is we'll definitely try some of it dry, and we'll reconstitute some of it just for the sake of seeing how that turns out. And you can see it looks like we get some pears and peaches in there, a little bit of red indicating the cherries, and once it's reconstituted, there of course would be some juice too to go along with it. And then we have our beverages, of which we have 3. We have the coffee, cocoa beverage powder, and the cherry beverage base powder. These actually have kind of interesting instructions that going to tell us a few interesting things. So the beverage base powder, which I'm hoping is going to be good. It feels like it's powder in here. This is going to go into 12 ounces of water. And there are definitely different schools of thought as to whether you should add the powder first and pour the water in, or start with the water and add the powder to that. But I will say on this one, it actually has, in the instructions, it does say dissolve contents of the 34-gram envelope in 12 ounces of cold water. So since it actually says to do that, that's how I'm going to do it. And that is the way I tend to like mixing them anyway. Let's see what we got here. There's this nice artificial cherry color. And it's a little bit, a little granular in there. It looks like the foil-lined paper pouch doesn't do as good as the more modern retort pouches do. But only something that's really going to go bad. And it has that that cherry smell. It's sort of unfortunate. It does have kind of a sweet artificial cherryness to it, but it also smells, I've said this before with these, it smells kind of like a urinal cake. But let's see how this mixes up. And I did want to mention, I have the spoon that came with this, and I have one from an MRE from 2016, and you can see they really haven't changed at all in the 26-27 years since they've been putting these into the MREs. This one is slightly darker, but You see a lot of that variance in general. Some of them are a little bit lighter than the others, and some are a little bit darker. See how this mixes up. And we'll just put some of that into a more reasonably sized glass, like that. And we have our coffee and our cocoa. Let's see how this Taster's Choice held up. It seems to smell fine. Let's see. Yeah, and it looks just fine. I don't see any mold in there or anything. Definitely, obviously, a good sign. And we'll put in the creamer and the sugar. Since we have them, and the cocoa beverage from Giannis Brothers Packaging in Kansas City, Missouri. This is a little bit interesting. I've always said you can have this either hot or cold, which obviously you can. You can have hot cocoa, or you can just have like a chocolate milk kind of a thing. And I was going to do this hot since I generally do them cold, so just for something different I was going to do it hot since we have the hot coffee too. But the instructions actually have something I never really noticed before. It says, for hot cocoa, add contents to hot water and stir until dissolved. Pretty simple. I always thought you did the same thing with cold, but it says for cold cocoa, mix contents with about 1 fluid ounce of water to make a smooth paste, and then add remainder of cold water and stir until blended. Which makes sense, because these two can be kind of tough to mix. So we'll go ahead and use that method. Start off with a little bit of water. And we'll add the cocoa beverage powder, and that looks fine. That looks absolutely fine. And just stir that up. I probably could have gone a little bit less water, but it should work fine. Alright, that seems to be a pretty good method, so you end up with less clumps. Like I said, I probably used about 2 ounces of water, probably about twice as much as I should. So, but it's kind of interesting that the instructions basically tell you to make a Ranger pudding. You know, you add an ounce of water and then you make a paste. But we'll go ahead and add some more water. And we have our pretty nicely mixed cocoa beverage. And that just leaves us with the star of our show, the 1992 corned beef hash. And if you can see this on here, corned beef hash 2058. This is very, very hot. Obviously, as I said, it doesn't have to be heated. It could be cold. See, they put the tear notches. They have 2 sets of tear notches, and they put them going the up and down way. So this isn't really designed for eating out of the pouch too conveniently. Obviously, the second, if you did the lower one, you could certainly get your spoon in there. It wouldn't be too bad. But we're doing a review, so we're going to go ahead and check this out on the tray. Oh, I can smell it. This is wow, that smells really good. I can't believe everything in this seems to be perfect, and I'm hoping that the visual and the smell test are going to be the same in the taste test, because I would like to be able to eat this whole thing. It smells, it definitely smells like a canned hash, a canned meat kind of product, and there's a little bit of a, well, it's corned beef, obviously, so it kind of smells a little bit like pastrami. Let me get all of it out of there. I suppose more appropriate to just say it smells like corned beef, which is what it should smell like. And there we have our 26-year-old corned beef hash steaming away on the plate. We gotta dig into that one. So the ingredients include corned beef, water, potatoes, salt, modified food starch, dehydrated onion, sugar, flavoring, dehydrated diced sweet green peppers, and spices. You can see, actually, here's the green pepper right here. It's a pretty good chunk of that. What else can I say about this? Let's try it out. All right. Let's see, it's the corned beef and the diced potatoes. That's what you're mostly seeing. I don't know if you can see the steam coming off of that, but it is. Tastes just fine. I was going to take a little sample. You do have to be careful with this stuff, there's no doubt. This is more than a quarter of a century old, but it must have been stored great. It seems to be perfect, and I'm finally, after all these years, getting to taste some MRE corned beef hash. Wow. It tastes like corned beef hash. I mean, what else should I have to say about it? If you like corned beef hash, you know what it tastes like. And that's what it tastes like. I'm trying to think if there's any aftertaste or any kind of a sort of a metallic kind of thing coming off of it from the packaging. It really doesn't seem to be. This is just very good. I almost want to say I'm getting a little something in the back of my throat, but I think it's just because it's hot. I think when I'm done here, I might actually fry up an egg and have this. It's the middle of the day, but this kind of calls for a breakfast. Let's take one last close-up look at this stuff. This really is pretty amazing. But I guess we do have to try some of the other stuff out too. Wow, that's good. Let's wash that down a little bit of the coffee, see if that's as good as it smelled. Yeah, that's good. That's I mean, I do have the cream and the sugar in there, so I can't totally judge the coffee itself, but I don't know. Is Taster's Choice considered a good coffee? It seems to be pretty high quality. And considering how old it is, it tastes really good. Try out the cracker. Try the cracker first, just to make sure it's as good as it smells. Everything in here seems to have been just perfectly preserved. Yep. It's got that boring cracker smell. Not really a saltine. I mean, there's obviously going to be some salt in the cracker meal, I'm sure, but there's no salt on top of it. Nothing exciting, but when you're dealing with something this old, it's very exciting to taste a boring cracker that just tastes like a cracker. Let's try the, actually let's try a little bit of the jelly. That seems to be in great shape. It's nice and firm. It's not all runny or anything like that. Almost wish it was raspberry. Yeah, it just tastes like grape jelly. You put that on cracker. That's a classic MRE taste. Like I had mentioned, the smell of the freeze-dried fruit, taste of cracker and grape jelly. This is like a kid snack. It kind of brings you back to being a kid, and also kind of reminds you of being in the service if you were in the service. It's a nice little snack there. And we'll go with the oatmeal cookie bar. Always a pleasant thing. You know, the cornflake bars and the oatmeal cookie bars, pretty similar. That's really good too. A lot of simple stuff in here, but just the fact that it's so good and so well preserved, it's definitely kind of similar to oatmeal cookie. The oatmeal flavor's coming through, a little bit of sweetness, just like an MRE oatmeal cookie. It's got some sweetness, a little bit of crunch, but not too much of either. That was really good. Try some of the cocoa beverage. That tastes like it was just packaged yesterday. And I'm going to do a little bit of dipping. Make the oatmeal bar chocolatey. Yeah, that's even better. MRE like this in 1992 would probably seem pretty boring, other than maybe the entree. Entree is pretty special. But to eat this in 2018, something very special about that, having it taste like this. I'm going to try some of this mixed fruit. Like I said, I think there's going to be peaches, pears, and some cherries in there. The maraschino kind of cherries. And it's in juice, so water-based syrup. Very sweet. Kind of makes up for the lack of sweetness in the oatmeal cookie bar. This is Very sweet. And it tastes just like if you had a cup, one of those little kids' cups of fruit salad, fruit mix. It tastes just like that, except that it's crunchy. Kind of a neat experience. And you can also, you don't necessarily have to put this in water reconstitute. You can put this in your mouth, let it sit there for a few seconds, and it kind of reconstitutes itself. It just kind of melts away. But I did say I was going to reconstitute some of it, so let's go ahead and do that. I have a little bit of water here. And we'll just take a piece of the fruit here and drop this into the water. That's probably a little bit more water than I need for this. Don't want to overdo it. Wow, that was interesting. Did you hear that? Yeah, I probably should do on even less water than that. Wow, so that's like instant. It just kind of... I better put a little bit more in there. It's kind of like a sizzling sound to it. So that's reconstituting nicely. Keep a little bit there for a dry one. And while that finishes reconstituting, I'm going to enjoy a little bit more of this corned beef hash. But we're going to check out the Tabasco sauce and see how well that held up. And judging how everything else has been, I'm expecting good things from that. Let's see, this should have a date code on it too. Yep, 2038. And look at that. I don't know if you can see that, but the neck is clear. I've had some that it was still liquid and it looked like it was fine, but it kind of got congealed and stuck up into the neck of the bottle. That smells like Tabasco sauce. So I'm gonna add a little bit here. I don't want to put a lot on because I'm really enjoying this this hash as it is. So I just want to give the Tabasco a little try. Yep, that does what it does. In these old days, a lot of the rations weren't I want to say very palatable, but they weren't great. Some of them were kind of bland. And it was great that they introduced these little bottles into the rations. A lot of guys would carry these, carry their own Tabasco bottles into when they went out into the field. But once you start putting in MREs, you could just use the stuff that they give you. But this corned beef hash is just really good on its own. It really doesn't need a hot sauce. That's really good. I'll try the cherry beverage base. And that's good. It's tough. You get that idea of the urinal cake in your head, and it's kind of hard to shake that. But it is a nice, nice sweet artificial cherry kind of a taste to it. It's really not bad at all. Especially because cherry's not that common of a beverage to find it. So I always enjoy it when you have something that's a little bit different. Lemon lime beverage base is fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but you drink it over and over again, and it gets a little bit repetitive. So I think the last thing we'll do is try this this hash with some crumbled crackers a la Gun Dog, and we'll also try it on the cracker too. Imagine if they had this as a side with the cheese and veggie omelet. I bet that would have made the omelet a little bit more popular. People just throw the omelet away and just eat the hash. Either way, the hash is definitely a winner. I can see why people rave about it. And I don't really see why they got rid of it. Maybe they weren't really that keen on breakfast menus yet at the time. And they weren't sure if it seemed like a breakfast thing or a lunch, dinner kind of thing. But you could eat this any time of day. And try with a little bit of that Gun Dog crunch. Yeah, that's good. It's a little adds another little level. Like I said, it's not necessary. You don't need that taste, but a little bit of crunch, and then you have like the hot sauce. You can dress it up a little bit. I guess the last thing to try is the reconstituted fruit. I told you what it tasted like dry, and here it is after reconstituting for a couple minutes. See, these white things appear to be pears, and the more yellow stuff, I guess, would be the peaches. Yeah, that's good. The pears are still a little bit chewy. For some reason, they seem to be taking the longest. But yeah, it's definitely pleasant. Despite being packaged in late 1991, it really tastes like a fresh fruit salad that you get out of a can or one of those little plastic cups. Then we have the dry version and the reconstituted version. Nice treat. And I think we've tried everything. I did want to give the gum a shot, see how that held up. Everything else, there's really nothing to complain about here, I don't think. Even the coffee was fine. The entree, very impressive. So let's see how the gum held up, see if it breaks my teeth. No, it's just a little bit on the hard side, but not bad at all. It sometimes these old ones, they kind of turn into like a powder in your mouth, and then they kind of have to come back together. But it seems very much like a fresh little chiclet. And I did want to try the moist towelette. It actually got some grape jelly on it, so also I'm all sticky, and I actually need this. But I wanted to see if this has that lemon smell to it. Yeah, it doesn't. It just kind of smells like alcohol, which is fine. But it works just fine. Makes it a little bit less sticky. And so that was a look at some corned beef hash and the rest of the components in a menu number 2 from 1992. And thank you once again to Fatboy Tactical for sending this along. This was a great treat. This was really awesome. And cheers, and thank you for watching. It is definitely nice to get a chance to try an entree that's been gone for a long time, that's that old, and it tastes that good. That was really good. Okay, and I did forget something. Sorry about that. I'm sure as I was looking at the tray saying, looks like we've tried everything, and getting ready to sign off, I'm sure a lot of people were screaming at the screen saying, hey, wait a minute, forget about the Tootsie Rolls. And these were supposed to be an indication of the storage, but I think judging from every single component here, including the Tabasco sauce, and obviously the main, I would say that this was stored about as good as you could store it. But we'll go ahead and try the Tootsie Roll, see if this is a tooth breaker. It just slides right out. The one I had from 1995 that had been frozen, it was, it was still very soft and malleable. It's a little bit harder, but it certainly seems like it's fine. I mean, Tootsie Rolls can be like that anyway. Well, let's go ahead and give this a try. Yep, that's fine. At this point, I'm not too surprised. I suppose if you warm this up, it would be a little bit softer, but it's not. It's definitely not rock hard. I mean, you can squeeze it, you can twist it and turn it. So this is fine too. The last little component, one of the best vintage rations I've ever had in my life. It ranks right up there with the frozen 1995 Chili Mac, which was it was really like a time machine in itself, and this was too. I really can't imagine that this tastes much different than it did the day that somebody opened up that case in 1992.